Coach, hey, thanks for joining me today on this Simple Coach to Coach interview. It's been a while since we last talked, so I am grateful that you responded to one of my, I think on Exeter, I posted something and you shot me a quick email. So really do appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Um, all right, let's just start with the basics. Let's start with tell me how you're, and there's a whole context to this. So tell me how your season went.
Yeah, honestly, I think it was better than any of us could have expected. Honestly, I mean, really similar schedule to the season before. Exact same roster. Honestly, we had four freshmen that came in, and otherwise it was literally the exact same team. Three seniors went out, four freshmen came in. Um, we had an increase in wins. Um, scored more goals. We gave up a lot less goals, which was awesome. And just really kind of started to establish, I hate to use the word culture, but an environment, and a really positive one. Just kind of started to figure out really who we are and who we want to be as we keep moving through things. And we laid a lot of groundwork for that. So it went significantly better, honestly, than anybody could have expected, I think.
Mm-hmm. So this was your first season with the team. It, how much were you able to do before the season began, or was it just almost like, hey, I don't want to say flying by the seat of my pants, but like obviously it's not enough time for you to sort of get the things that you want to implement. It's going to take a few years, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just wondering about that
Yeah, we
part of the
did
challenge.
we did a lot of things really fast. So I got here in March of last year, so I'm going on like 15 months now. So I got to be with the team through the spring before the fall season, which was great because I got to know them a little bit and they got to know me. We didn't really do much from a playing perspective. I mean, we obviously trained and stuff, but we didn't get to implement a lot because it's such a short amount of
Yeah.
time. And having just got here, it was kind of quick. But it was great to kind of get to know each other a little bit and kind of start that off. Um, but we did some really big things really fast. I mean, we got heart rate monitors in this fall, which were huge. I followed those religiously, and knock on wood, but we had zero soft tissue injuries this year. Not a
Nice.
single one. No pulled muscles, nothing like that. We had a concussion and a few other contact things, but no
Yeah.
soft tissue, which was great. Um, so those were huge. And then, kind of in the same context, as soon as I got here, I think maybe a week or so after I got here, we got a strength and conditioning coach in who works with us remotely,
Mm,
which has been huge.
yeah.
So the kids have been able to work with him for over a year now, which is great. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was probably the biggest difference maker from one season to the next is what we've
Mm-hmm.
done in the weight room from a strength and
Mm-hmm.
conditioning perspective.
Um, how receptive have has the team been since you came on board?
Extremely. I honestly I can't speak highly enough of them. They have been the absolute best part of this job. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think we've done a lot of things, that they hadn't done in the past, whether it was, different things like scouts, film, um, individual meetings, individual training sessions, all sorts of different things. We started a leadership group, and there's a book club that kind of goes along with that, and all sorts of different stuff. So I've asked them to do a lot of different things, and honestly, they've loved it. They've jumped right in.
Mm-hmm.
They've done everything that I've asked. They've been super positive about it. We had lots of stuff going on with the floods that happened on campus, and
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
we've
yeah.
had tons of different fundraising things, and sometimes I've asked them to do things for us at the last minute, and they kind of always do it with a smile, and they're ready to go, and we've kind of just taken on this like can do attitude, and
Mm-hmm.
if we need something, we're going to get it done ourselves. We're not going to rely on anybody else, and the team has really kind of embodied that, and so I can't speak highly enough of the group that we have here, and I tell that to every single one of our recruits when I talk to them too. Is
Yeah.
you're not going to understand it until you get here and you see it and you
Yeah.
you see what they're doing. So they've really made my life really really easy since getting here.
Oh, nice. Um, how do you like the blue turf? How did it? How did it grow on you?
So I absolutely hated it when I first got here. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, this is so gimmicky and stupid. And then honestly, um, after about a week or two of training on it, I loved it. Like once you
Mm-hmm.
get out there and you're used to it, um, you can like spatially your awareness is so much better. Like the colors,
Mm-hmm.
the contrast of the colors with the
Mm-hmm.
blue and the white and whatever else, it's just
Yeah.
there's something about it that it's just easier to
Mm-hmm.
tell where you are and what you're doing. And I
Yeah.
think it shows in our home field advantage too. I've got to imagine it's a struggle for other teams to play on it when they're not used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it's great, and it's been, I don't want to call it a selling tool, but it's something that our recruits have liked too. And I thought it was either
Mm-hmm.
going to be, all right, we're going to get some that love it and some that hate it, but 90% of the time everybody thinks it's awesome and they love it, and
Yeah.
we've had a lot of success with it. So
Yeah.
it's grown on me very fast.
Yeah. I have to say it was it it's a great venue for soccer. It's a great venue. Like not just the blue. The blue is what you remember, but it is such a great place for soccer. Like you're right there on campus. I got to believe that that's a big deal too, right? Like you're just stones throw away from dorms and all that kind of stuff. So I think
Yeah.
um yeah, just becomes seems to me it would be a center of hey, there's a game, let's go watch a game, and it's be very easy. Whereas I think in the past it hasn't been.
Yeah, and we're right
Um,
next to freshman housing, which is awesome.
yeah,
We're about 50 yards away from our building, which is all soccer. Nobody else is
yeah,
down here,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah,
And we get to go right into the locker room at halftime, and it's just, you're right. It's kind of the
yeah,
perfect setup,
yeah,
and we've talked like, where else are you going to find this? That's set up like
yeah,
this.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
yeah. I don't know. I'm going to assume it's the same as the men's locker room, but yeah, that the building for those who don't know, it's I'm going to say 30 yards from the field. It might be farther. I don't remember. I'm just recollecting from memory, but it has a gym. It has the locker rooms and the coaches' offices, and the locker rooms are not rooms with chairs. They're like real deal locker rooms. Like wow,
Yeah, yeah, the locker
guys'
rooms are
names.
fantastic.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
we're really similar to the men, so
Mm-hmm.
their locker room itself is a little bit bigger, but we have
Mm-hmm.
bigger lockers than ours, which is what makes it feel
Mm-hmm.
a little bit smaller. So,
Right.
they're really similar. Um, yeah, if you've seen the men's locker room, you've pretty much seen ours. It's laid out a little bit
Yeah.
different, but the nice wooden lockers. We've got the big backlit crest in there. We
Yeah.
actually just
Oh,
got
nice.
we just put in a big Pepsi cooler in there, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
The TV, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a nice setup, and we're right next to that green room with the turf that's got the tech ball table in it.
Nice. Oh
So
yeah,
yep,
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
easy
That's
for
I
them to
forgot
get
it.
out
The
and play
tech ball
there.
table. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we're pretty fortunate with the facilities, and then just having nobody else down here is awesome. It's just men's and women's
Yeah.
soccer all day, every
Yeah.
day, and it's a cool environment.
Yeah. The a lot of programs like could emulate Marietta. I know that's probably easier said than done. I'm spending other people's money and all that kind of stuff and facilities and stuff. But it could every program would be so much better off if they had your setup.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I've had people ask me, what are your aspirations? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be there forever? Do
mm-hmm,
you want to go experience? Do you want to do this,
right.
that, the other thing? And I'm like, kind of, but where else am I going to go where I have all this?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. You have to almost get into like rarefied air,
yeah,
like those programs that just are different for a whole host of reasons. Because yeah, what you have there is definitely, at least definitely in the OAC, I think is pretty unique.
yeah. I mean, I've only obviously, our conference schedule will change over
Mm-hmm,
not this fall, but the next fall.
right.
So I've only been to about half of the OAC schools, but
Mm-hmm.
I haven't found one yet that's got facilities like
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
I mean, they're
yeah,
great schools and they have beautiful facilities all in their own
yeah,
right, but just
right.
I don't think I've seen one that has everything that we have in the way that we
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah, yeah. And soccer specific,
it.
like
Yeah,
you said, right?
yeah.
Hey, I'm curious. All right, so you didn't do much in the fall, in the spring last year because new all that kind of stuff. What did you do? What have you done this spring? Is there anything different that you sort of approach this spring to be like, okay, got a spring and a fall. under our belts. Here's the second spring. Did it look any different?
Yeah, so I actually did, and I experiment a little bit. I've done something that I've never done anywhere else that I've ever been. So for the most part, through the spring, we kept our training sessions shorter to like an hour, maybe an hour 15 max. And for the most part, we just played like larger sided, whether it was 8v8 or
Mm-hmm.
11v11 or whatever it was. And the focus wasn't on the team as a whole, it was on individuals. So as they were playing, I was working with one or two individual players per session, trying to give them some really specific things to kind of focus on and things to work on, and really kind of work a little bit more with the individual and on the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And that all started before the spring season with some individual meetings. I sat down with every single player, asked them what their goals were, what they wanted. We actually have an individual, each player has an individual development plan that
Mm-hmm.
we've come up with. And we kind of just worked through that and set things up. And that was the focus through the training sessions. And the players had the ability to come in here in the office and say, hey, I've really been working on this and this, can you give me some feedback today? And that would be who I would
Mm-hmm.
focus on for the day, that
Mm-hmm.
person and maybe one or two others. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot more individualized. But it was really good too because while those two or three people were getting a lot of attention, the rest of the team had time and some freedom to really just play and have a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
fun and experiment and do what they wanted to do. So a lot of it was, based around the attacking side of the game. And, I think we saw that in our spring matches that we played. I think we didn't win all of them, which I wasn't worried about. I told them I don't care. We can give up 10 goals per. We're working on the attacking side of things. But we absolutely dominated the control of the ball in every single one of the matches, which was huge, and started to create some more attacking chances and have a little bit more creativity, which was the focus. So we were super happy with it. And, going through wrap up meetings with the team after the spring, I think they were pretty happy with it and the layout and the structure of it too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
it's something we're going to roll with as we go forward too.
Well, that's interesting. I would say, and this is just my thoughts about the game, right? Like successful attack generally is because you successfully hold on to the ball to one degree or another with purpose, right? Like I think one without the other doesn't happen, right? It might short term it, but you're always going to get caught in that situation where you're not scoring enough goals. Why aren't you scoring enough goals? Well, because we can't get the ball and we can't be productive with it, and or vice versa, right?
I think the key word
I
there is the productivity, right? And whether you
yeah,
have the ball or not, I mean, you see great teams that just live off the counterattack and they score
yeah,
tons of goals and they have
exactly. It correct.
30% of the ball, right? But
Yeah,
for me, it's a little bit about bravery, and particularly in
yeah,
women's soccer, it's become so structured where everybody is positional and you need to move here and do
yep.
this and move here. And for me, it's about being a little bit more brave, I guess, and
Daring.
being willing
Yeah.
to move yourself out of that structure and then
Mm-hmm.
be able to play off your teammates. So your 10 just
Yeah.
ran above the ball. Can you get your
Yeah.
7 or your 11 to dive in and become the
Yeah.
new 10, right? And then your outside
Yeah.
back can become your winger and whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. So it was kind of things like that we worked on. And again, just the bravery piece of being willing to run and run above the ball. Even if
Mm-hmm.
you don't get it, you're a
That's
decoy
okay.
at times, right?
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of that, some counter movements, things like that, and that was the big focus for us.
I do think that's interesting you raised that. And this is a bigger Tim Hortons. Sorry. I get
It's right across
distracted
the
by
road from the office.
yeah.
That and
another
Qdoba.
benefit.
It's bad.
Another benefit to Marietta, right? Like there's a Tim Hortons right there. um that's that's interesting you say that again because I had some just different ideas about what I watch and I think in particular you're right in particular in the women's game I think there is an an endemic an endemic problem I think with the coaching of girls in that they're so I don't mean this in a bad way right they're so sensitive not so much to criticism but the criticism they receive for making mistakes and so it causes kids to not be as brave or just to be like I'm not leaving my space because if I do and something happens I'm in trouble and I think I see a lot of that I don't know if
Well,
that's
I think the difference there is that You're right, but I think that comes from a relationship building process, right?
Mm,
Like in the men's game, a lot of times you can do that, and the guys just move past it, whatever, and they don't care.
yeah,
In
yeah,
the women's game, there's got to be a relationship there first, and I think that's
yeah.
been like that was the huge benefit of me coming in when I did, is that I had that
Uh-huh.
opportunity to build relationships with the team, and it's
Yeah.
something that I spend a lot of time doing, even to this day, and will continue to do. Is I'm not just telling you that you're doing something wrong because you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you and I want to make you better. And they know that without me saying that, because
Yeah.
we have individual, like my relationship with each player on the team is completely different, just with how we
Hmm.
interact with each other, and what we do and the things that we talk about. And I'm really fortunate that I have the time to be able to do that and interact with them on an individual basis almost daily with
Hmm.
each of them, which is awesome. And they're all really comfortable coming in here and talking about whatever they need to do. So I think that's the big difference, is being able to provide some of that criticism, but there's
Yeah.
got to be a background before that. You can't just give
Yeah.
it and expect
Yeah.
them to be
That's a
receptive.
very good point, right? Yeah. Criticism from somebody who you don't value, like as a person for whatever reason, because you just don't have that relationship, is definitely treated a lot differently than if you're somebody who cares about them, you want them to develop, and they know, and it's in sort of fundamental to your relationship. Like, yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, and they understand, like that you just said it. It's that I care about them, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
just want them to, I'm here to win games. That's my job, right? I have to
Yeah.
win games. But if that wasn't my job, this would look very different for everybody, right? Because I
Hmm.
do care about them, and we have
Yeah.
conversations about that all the time. Like, look, it's not that I don't want you to play. I want every single one of you to play, and I wish that we
Yeah.
could make that happen, right? But the
Yeah.
reality of team sports is that any team, you can take the worst team in the country and the best team in the country. There's people on both of them that don't play, right? And it's
Yeah.
just it's
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Does the men's coach still have more hair than you?
He does, yes, um,
But who's better looking?
definitely me for
Okay,
sure.
all right. You know what? Like, I had to throw you that
I left it
softball.
out of there, but he's about a foot taller than me, and one of the football guys put a scale in here in the weight room, and I got about 20 pounds on him too. So
Who cares about height when you can take him down just by charging him like a bull?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
I make sure to remind him of that every now and again.
um, I've noticed, I don't know if why, but I've been paying attention a lot to, especially on the women's side for some reason. I think because there's a lot of interesting things that have happened on the women's side of the game, from coaching changes, that sort of thing, that has me intrigued for this fall. And one thing I've noticed is that you're very much out there on the recruiting trail, and you're very much trying to raise the profile of Marietta women's soccer. And I'm sure some of that is just part of your job. It seems to me that it's like legit, that I've not necessarily seen before, or I'm just late to the game and it's always been there. But I'm just curious, like, how has that been going? Have you noticed a, yeah, I guess it would be demonstrated in your recruiting class. Have you seen a receptivity from recruits now that, hey, give Marietta a chance and that sort of thing? I don't know if that sounds right or,
Yeah, no,
but
I mean, we've been everywhere. It's been really nice. Having my assistant Daniela come in. She's from New Jersey, so it's easy for us to get out on the East Coast.
mm-hmm.
It saves us a lot of money. She can go out there and stay with her family and kind of hit some of those tournaments. My network has grown significantly, where I have a lot of people that I can kind of bunk up with and save costs when we go. And I mean, we do things as cheaply as possible, and we take what I would say is a pretty normal recruiting budget, and we stretch it really really far, so that we can
Mm-hmm.
get to more places and talk to more people. Again, I think a big piece of the recruiting process has been relationship building. I'm
Mm-hmm.
We're not just seeing these kids play and then telling them we want them to come to Marietta. We're seeing them
Yeah.
play, and then it's a phone call, and then it's an initial visit, and then it's another
Right.
phone call, and then we're seeing them play some more, and then they're coming back and they're doing an overnight with the team, and then it's another phone call, and there's all these interactions, and none of it is about soccer, right? Like once
Mm.
I've seen them play, it takes me about 10 minutes.
10
And
minutes. I
after
always
about
say
10
this.
minutes if
Yeah.
they can play or
Yeah.
not. But
Oh,
it's
I
all the
gotcha.
other things that come with it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
tell them all, like, I don't want you to just come do the overnight so that we can see if you're the right fit for us. We need to see if we're the right fit for you, right? Because I don't want
Yeah.
somebody to come here and go, man, these guys are crazy. I can't stay here, and then leave
Yeah.
after 6 months. That's not what we're
Yeah.
after either, right?
Yeah.
So it's really, really thorough. We've had, I straight up told the players, I said, look, if it was up to me right now, you'd be up on the board, you'd have an offer to be here, but I need you to come back and interact with the team. I need you to spend more time with
Yeah.
them before we get to that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm extremely honest about all that stuff with everybody. But again, it's the relationship process that goes along with that. So
Mm-hmm.
we're getting out, we're seeing a ton of people, we're talking with tons and tons of people, and it's leading to success. And then once they come on campus, most people haven't even heard of us. Like they get down here and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I had no idea
Yeah.
this existed.
Yeah.
And like the place is beautiful. You've seen it. Like the
Yeah.
town is
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible. The school is incredible. The facilities, and they had just had no idea. And like we've had a ton of success with that. We've got 5 players committed for the class of 2025 already, and all 5 of them said when they committed, I wanted to commit while I was right there on campus, but my parents made me go see other schools first.
Yeah.
And they just knew like right away. And we've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
getting a ton of that, and that's awesome because now we know we're getting the people that really want to be here. And it's great that they went
Yeah.
and saw other schools because I tell them to do that too. You need to go look at other
Yeah.
places, and if you keep
Yeah.
comparing them to Marietta, then Marietta's the place. But if
Yeah.
all of a sudden you find yourself comparing Marietta to somewhere else, maybe that somewhere else is the place and that's the right spot for you, right? And ultimately that's what we want, is just kids to land in the place that's best for them. So there's
Yeah.
been a ton of success. I think there's been a lot of volume, and then the relationship building through that volume has been
Mm-hmm.
huge. And then the campus and the facilities and everything, they take care of themselves.
Yeah. I did when I was there. I think this is before your time that I stopped down. I did a video
It
of
was because I
campus.
actually
Yeah.
watched the videos when I was interviewing, so I could get
Are you serious? That's awesome. I I wish I should get a finder's fee.
yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I'll tell Heiser.
Yeah, please. Um, no, it's it's a interesting, like it. There's something about it. It's a cool. It's a like a it's a gem of a school, and you're right. Like unless you're there, you just don't. You don't. You don't know it's there, right? Like
Yeah.
it surprises you. To me, it was a surprise. Like, and I played there, in Mount Union, so I've been there a number of times, but I've never walked campus and done all that. It's such a cool place. Um, um, all right, so all right, now I'm gonna. First of all, let me just say your assistant Daniela. She's from Robbinsville, New Jersey. I'm looking at her bio. Um, um, that's like 30 minutes from me. That's interesting. I was actually just maybe 5 minutes from her house at Mercer County Park over the weekend.
I'll send her home with some gear for you here in a couple.
Yeah, I refereed Sunburst tournament. She probably knows of it. Like
Yep.
just yeah. So yeah. Um, I'm not a big fan of their soccer program because I'm a assistant coach at the local high school in Montgomery, and we compete against you. So I'm not going to send her kudos for that. But the fact that she's from Robbinsville and she's from Jersey, um, you do have to ask her on my behalf if she likes pumping her own gas now that she's in Ohio. I don't know.
Well, it's funny.
Jersey girl.
We actually pick on her about that all the time, and just about being from New Jersey in general. We
Yeah,
we make some
yeah.
jokes, and uh,
Careful, she might know people. Everybody in New Jersey knows
I
people who
know.
can really be influential in your opinions
You
about
you
things.
got to
So,
remember, I'm from New York, so I know people too.
yeah, yeah, you know some people too, some good family people in the construction business, I'm
Yeah,
sure,
right.
or the waste disposal business.
Yep, yep.
um, all right, so I'm going to hold your feet a little bit to the fire and say, okay, based on look, it sounds like everything's been going well, right? Like you're sort of in I don't want to say on this trajectory, but it almost sounds like, yeah, I made progress here, we made progress there, and we keep building it. What do you envision for the fall? Like what are your, I'll say it more like aspirational than what are your goals for the fall? Like what are you aspiring for to see from the team in the fall?
Yeah, I think we're just going to build on what we've already done. We've got
Mm-hmm.
a really experienced team now to some extent, right? Like we have a lot of upperclassmen, and a lot of them played the majority of our minutes last year, and we're not losing a lot from, who played a ton. So we're going to be a lot deeper, which is awesome. But we're going to have, we've got 12 new players coming in, so there's going to be an adjustment period there with them, kind of getting used to what we do and how we play and learning things. So we're going to have to build off of the base that we already have. Um, we spend a lot of time talking about how we can set goals and aspirations and whatever. And the reality is, we all know where we should be. We should be in the OAC playoffs. We should be competing to host an OAC playoff game. And then once we're there, we're competing to be in the national tournament. And that's where Marietta should be. Honestly, it's where it should be. You look at every other team here at the school, and that's what's happening. We've got Final
Yeah.
Fours, Sweet 16s,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever, and that's it. It's where we should be. With that, we talk about all the time how we're not going to set hard goals for those things.
Mm-hmm.
We could have set the hard goal this year that we wanted to be in the playoffs. We didn't get in the playoffs. We missed it by 2 points. Right,
Yeah.
a 1 goal swing in about 5 different matches would have put us in the
Good.
playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't mean that our season was unsuccessful by any means.
Yeah.
So I don't like the hard goals, because just because you don't hit them doesn't tell the whole story, and it doesn't make your season a failure or what you've done a failure. So we focus a lot more on the process, and what we do every single day to get better in the way that we go about it and the way that we carry ourselves. And that's what we're going to continue to do, is just focus on that. And that's how we've
Mm-hmm.
established such a positive environment. And I think the kids have really started to enjoy themselves again, which is huge. I think that was kind of the number
Huge.
one thing when I got here, and um, it's been successful. So that's what we're going to keep doing. We're just going to build and keep doing what we're doing, and that's going to make us better every single day just by doing that.
Mm-hmm. You just said something that sort of warms my heart, right? Like, which is, and it's probably because I hang around with a lot of kids during the, refereeing and doing all this stuff in high school, and I think we lose the fact that this should be an awesome, joyful experience, no matter what you do. And if you lose that, you lose a really big chunk of the game, and it's not, you could do all the X's and O's you want, but if your heart's not in it or you're just not emotionally attached to the game, it's just X's and O's. You're like, okay, I'll move here, right? And there's no creativity, there's no, and so I really liked hearing that.
It's
And
why I like. It's why I do my job, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't make a lot of money doing this, and to be honest,
yeah,
there's about 10 different things I could go do and make a lot more money. But I think I'm good at this. I guess that's better for somebody else to judge, but
yeah,
I don't think I would be nearly as good at my job if I didn't enjoy it. And I look at that
yeah.
the same way for the kids, right? Like if they're enjoying what they're doing, they're probably going to be better at it. So, like if it's not fun, we're already starting at a disadvantage, right? So it's got to
Mm-hmm.
be fun and enjoyable for them, and if it is, they're going to give that much more, and we're probably going to get that much more out of them in return.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right, so um, how if you had to say that there was an end state of where you want the program to be, how far do you think you are from it?
I talked with a lot of people about this, even before I got to Marietta, and most people say it takes about 7 years to really
Mm-hmm.
build a program. You've got
Yeah.
a full team that's all people that you've recruited and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I think probably going to see some steps backwards before forward again. This senior class, we've got 8 seniors in it coming up this fall, and 3 fifth-year students that are really really important to the team. Um, our class of 2024 is good, and our class of 2025 I think is very good too. Even though it's kind of just in some of the beginning stages.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but losing that many people who play that much is always going to hurt, right? And it's awesome that the groups underneath them kind of get to learn and adjust. But there's going to be more adjustment coming after that, and it's going to take some time to continue to build. So I don't know how far away we are, to be honest. I think the benefit that we have is that we've got a lot more people looking at this place, a lot more people that are interested in it. And we're bringing in people who are just as invested in it as the rest of us are, which is huge. Um, so it's always a crapshoot, right? Like you just never know. But I
Mm-hmm.
can say I'm really happy with the people that we have coming in for 24 and 25. We've got some incredible 26s on the board that we've already started talking to, and we've had some of them on campus, and we're kind of going through things. So I'm really excited about that class as well. And it's just going to be a matter of how quickly can everybody kind of mature and grow into themselves and grow into what we're doing here. And that happens at a different rate for everybody. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but again, it's the process, right? Like that's what we're going to focus on, and we're going to keep getting better every day. And as that happens, the program's going to go where it needs to go on its own. It's
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the place that we're at, right? Like there's success here everywhere, and as long as we do things the right way every day, we're kind of destined for the same success.
Yeah. Hey, I'm curious. Just thinking about this as I think you said you had five 24s that are coming in, or
25.
that you
Yep.
know of 25, 24 25s that are coming in. What do you, like? What's the number? What's your number that your goal? Like if you were to say, "Hey, I have this recruiting class that's coming in that is X, and that's the number that you want."
Yeah, so that kind of gets developed based on how the class kind of comes together. So if I had to tell you right now how many kids I want in 2025, I'd probably tell you about 14. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
in the business of bringing people here and then cutting them because I found
yeah.
somebody better,
Somebody
right? Like
better.
you're coming
Yeah.
here and we're going to develop you and we're going to make you better. Like you're not going to come here your
Yeah.
freshman year, not cut it and get cut your sophomore year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're going to help you grow through your junior and senior year too. That's the idea. Now, with that being said, we're always looking. Each class should be better than the one before it, right? Because as a
Mm-hmm.
team, we're getting better and we're attracting more talented individuals as we come through things. Um, but I tell you that number because I want to carry about 30 field players, and then anywhere from 3 to 5 goalkeepers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I focus on is what we're losing and where, and then based on
Filling.
how the season goes, I kind of determine where we need a little bit more depth. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the big areas where we were hurt this past season were with wingers. So
Mm-hmm.
we've brought in 4 wingers in this class, so we added a lot of depth there. And then just looking at things like we're going to be shy on outside backs, so we're probably going to bring in 3 or 4 outside backs in 2025. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we've already got 2 of them committed, which is awesome. We're super excited about them.
Really, that's
Um,
awesome.
so
For 2025,
yeah,
so not this fall.
the next one, yeah,
Next. Wow.
yeah. There's five players committed for that class.
Wow. 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 That's pretty cool, right? I mean, I think that says a lot too. Again, of the work you're doing,
Yeah,
right?
and
Like,
they're
you
they're
know what I mean? Like
excited to
that to
be
me
here.
is, yeah,
That's the
exactly.
biggest
They're
thing.
ready. They've done all the and they're like, this is where I want to be. And I think that speaks a lot again to the stuff that I observed and in my own little way, and sort of there's just the effort that you put into getting the program to where you want it to be, right? Because it's ultimately, to one extent or another, like it or not, it's your job, right? Like it ends up being a reflection of who you are as that program leader. And so I think that's very telling.
Well, it's where
And
it
it's
should
very
be,
cool.
honestly, right? Like I feel
Yeah.
like I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's the reality of where this place should be and what it should
Yeah.
be, and
Yeah.
like, most people
I
don't
agree.
know about it. But when you get here, you know, like you see
Yeah.
it. Like athletics are
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
here, and there's an
Yeah.
investment in it.
Yeah.
we should be in a much better place than what the
Yeah.
program has been. So, and the kids know that too, and that's the biggest thing is like
Yeah.
a lot of this has been kind of turning over the reins to them and like where do you want to take it, what do you want to do, and giving them that investment in it, and they see it, and that's been a huge piece of it as well.
I'm always intrigued of schools, like I always say on the you know like Messiah, right? Like, what is it about Messiah? Messiah's in the middle. I mean, I've been there. It's in the middle of nowhere, and here they have soccer programs, plural, that are, best in the best, regardless of division in the country, or how they operate, how they're managed, and obviously their success. And then I look at, and then there's other schools like and Mount Union's to a certain extent, right? Like football became like this big juggernaut, but it sort of bled into, hey, if football can do it, why can't we do it in track? And why can't we be good in softball and baseball and all these different, and basketball? And I think Marietta's in the same. I mean, you have an outstanding. I mean, the two programs that I know of, right? Like basketball and baseball, right? Like if they can be successful, what stops the other programs?
Yeah,
I
and
don't
you
know.
see it. I mean, you see
Yeah,
it. Football was 8-2 this year. They lost to Mount Union, and they
yeah,
mounted like a
good.
27-point comeback or something with John Carroll,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah,
like a 3-point game, and they had an incredible season, and that was a program that was in the dumps before Coach Waddle got here.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
they've done really well. Softball hosted super regionals last year.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
volleyball has been consistently near the top of the conference. Women's lacrosse is
yeah,
only like 5 or 6 years old, and they were hosting a playoff game last year, which was really
yeah,
cool. You're just seeing it. Everybody's having
yeah,
success. Even track and
yeah,
field has got some All Americans and whatever,
yeah,
and they're kind of coming up with things. So it's
yeah,
just it's history and tradition is what it is,
yeah,
right? Like there's just
yeah,
an atmosphere around the whole place about how it should
yeah,
be, and the way that things operate, and it's contagious.
yeah, yeah. Very true. Very true. Um, and I'm a big kind of sort of fan. I'm glad the football team lost to Mount Union. I mean, I can't hide that. I can't say.
It's the
Just,
wrong football for me. We support them as
yeah,
much as we can.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
play at the same
I
time as us, so it's hard.
yeah,
But yeah, it's
yeah.
the wrong football.
I, it's like the one thing I got to hold on to. We're so good at football, you
I've
guys.
been waiting for you to
Like
talk about our game with Mount Union. That's what I've
what's
been.
that? Yeah, like tell me about that. Go ahead. I'm very interested. I don't think I watched that one.
It was fun. I mean, it just that was one of the matches where things just came together for us. We had been
Hmm.
talking a lot about the process and how we want to play, and then leading up to that game, it was kind of like, all right, let's go get a result. We need one. Let's focus a little
Hmm.
bit more on the result today. And I think we just kind of flipped a switch, and again, it was a game that we just kind of dominated, which was awesome.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a good
Was
one.
that
I don't want to call it a
was that
turning point because I wouldn't say we necessarily had a turning point or really needed
uh-huh.
one, but that was a really important game for us, and it was huge to
Yeah.
go get those 3 points.
Well, it makes you believe a little bit, right? Like I always say, like you need these milestones along the way to validate the work you've done in the past, because the work's not going to materialize into whatever the result you want overnight, and so you need these validation points. And it sounds like that's what this was a little bit.
Yeah, it was just it
For
was a feel good moment, I'd say. I
yeah,
think the
yeah,
real like validation point to the work that we put in came in our second game of the season with Chatham.
mm-hmm,
That was a team that whacked these guys like 7-0 or 7-1 maybe the year before,
mm-hmm,
and we beat them here. Which was huge. And they didn't have the same year that they had the year before, and I'm sure they're going
mm-hmm.
to get better. They're going to give us a hard time next year too. But that was just kind of like the point for the kids to see like, okay, this is different, and this is going to go differently than it has in the past.
Yeah. Can I ask you, because you just started, you just opened a can of worms for me, so I'm sorry. I'm looking at your schedule. How it's a number of one goal games. It, you ended up 5-9-2, but what do you think your record could have been based on the performances of those games that were one goal differentials, right? Like where you're like, did you walk off the field of those and be like, damn it, we let one go. We this was
We
one that we should have
we
had.
walked off the field at Muskingum, to be quite frank, really pissed off,
Yeah,
and the whole team knew it. And that one, I would say, was a turning point for us. Right, we had lost to
yeah,
Baldwin Wallace, played a really poor first half. We talked about it at halftime. Turned it on. The second half was 0-0. We put a couple balls off the post. It was a
yeah,
completely different game from one half to the next. And then
right,
we come out at Muskingum. We just didn't play well, to be honest. We didn't play very well at all, and credit to
mm-hmm.
them, they took advantage of it and did a good job. And we walked away from that game with a draw, and that was the one that hurt us. If we got that
Mm-hmm.
game, we'd have been in the playoffs. The
Playoffs.
other one that
Yeah,
I think of, um, there's a couple actually. So you look at our John Carroll game. Um, I would say either team deserved to win that game. They
yeah,
probably had the better run of play, to be
mm-hmm.
perfectly honest. But they had a couple pretty clear cut chances, and so didn't we. We had every
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to tie that game, or win it, and so did they. It
Yeah,
was just so back and
yeah,
forth,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
was really fun, and it was a good one for us. And then the final one was just Wilmington. We led that game until the last few minutes, and they got one back in some of the chaos as they were starting to push things. And it was another game that was really back and forth and super fast and really transitional, honestly, just with the way the game kind of shaped up.
Yeah,
And it's one we give up that goal in the last few minutes.
yeah,
And leave with a draw. But again, that's a team that came here and I think they beat us 4-0 the year before. And then
yeah,
we go to
yeah,
their place
yeah,
and it's a 1-1 draw, and it could have been
yeah,
1-0 to us. It could have been 1-0 to them
yeah,
too. It's another one that was
yeah.
just back and forth, but we had control of it, and I think we let it go. So, those are some of the games that I wouldn't necessarily say we want John Carroll back because we feel we lost it. We want it back
Yeah.
because it was a really good opportunity.
Good.
Um,
Yeah.
but the other ones, I like Muskingum. I felt like we let that one go. We
Yeah.
should have been in more control. And then Wilmington, we got ourselves in control after a pretty crazy
And
match, and then we let go of it. So those were the couple that I'd say we'd want back.
yeah, yeah. There's always those, right? Like, I do. I mean, like your competitiveness. I'll just say that. Just to look, not having watched that many games, like I think your level of competitiveness has definitely jumped, right? Like, and I'm not saying that you should have won every single game, but at least you're fighting in games, right?
Yeah,
Which
I
I'm
think
not
there
so
were there were
sure.
really only two games that we let get away from us. Kenyon
Mm,
was awful. We gave up
yeah,
several goals on set pieces, and we just
yeah,
didn't get off the bus the right way
yeah,
that day. I don't know what it was.
yeah,
And then Carnegie Mellon, and to be honest with you, Carnegie Mellon was one of the best matches we played all season long. If
yeah,
you get a chance to go back and watch that game, I suggest it. We
yeah,
were incredibly organized, incredibly hard to break down. I think they'll tell you the same thing. It was super encouraging. Honestly, I've never seen a team
uh-huh,
lose 5-0 and be so happy as
yeah,
we were to walk off that field. But to give a team like that such a hard time and to frustrate
mm-hmm,
them the way that we frustrated them, even when they're scoring 5 goals, like that's
yeah,
it's hard to do.
yeah,
And it was a good match for us. And we had a few players who were out with injury. We had the concussion,
yeah,
and another contact injury that was out for that match. That was
yeah.
pretty important. So honestly, that was
And
one of our better matches, and you won't hear me say that very often, losing 5-0, but it was a good one for us.
and I'll say Canyon is not a bad team, and then Carnegie Mellon I think may have been ranked like
They were number one
first,
in the
second,
country at the
third,
time.
but at the time, right?
Mhm.
Like, so you're not. I don't want to say you're swinging above your weight, right? But it's almost like you're going into that could become a very ugly game against a again one of the best teams in the country that can almost make it like this is
Yeah,
right
and I
like
mean,
can,
our objective going into that was to just make it really, really hard for them and
hard.
to
Yeah,
frustrate them, and we did. And they broke through. They
yeah,
got their chances to break through, and
yeah.
it was almost like every time they had the chance, they took advantage of it, right? And
They
that's what
took
makes them
advantage of
so
it.
good.
Sure.
But we really did.
Yeah,
We limited those chances as much as
yeah,
possible, and we had a couple chances on our own. I wouldn't say they were great or they
Right? Yeah,
came
yeah.
very
Hey,
often, but we had a couple of them, which
yeah.
kind of speaks volumes. And it's just until
Yeah.
you've seen those guys play and you really understand the capacity, um, and their capabilities, it's difficult to
Well,
understand
like,
what it means to be able to do that to them.
yeah. That's the sort of game where a team walks in, has too much respect, and then gets throttled,
Yeah,
and then by 3/4 of the way in to the game after halftime, like the number 35 on the roster is playing minutes, right?
yeah,
Because it's just so, and it just becomes and that's what I meant. Like to me, goals don't matter, right? It's like, what are you doing on the field to, like I said, make it difficult or make it challenging or make them sweat a little bit, right? Like I think if a lot more teams just understood that and believed that, I think it would be a right. Like it would just make the level of competitiveness that you can't take a game for granted, right?
yeah,
Like, and maybe that's what they're thinking. If you play them again, we can't take Marietta for granted now because we know how limiting they were for us. So,
yeah. And
I
that
mean, that's
was,
a
I
big
mean,
deal.
um, we did that. It was 2-0 at halftime, and
Yeah,
I'm good friends with their staff. And one of my buddies walked up to me at halftime and was like, "That's really good, man.
yeah,
Thanks for doing that
yeah,
for us.
yeah,
We needed this."
yeah,
And
yeah,
that was a huge compliment for us to be able to
yeah,
have that, to
yeah,
know that we were making them have a serious talk at halftime.
yeah,
It wasn't
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
We're going
yeah.
to give Susie minutes here and we're going to
Yeah,
make these
yeah,
changes and
exactly,
whatever. It
exactly.
was,
Yeah,
yes, we got to figure this out if we're going to
yeah,
secure this game. So
yeah,
that was huge for us too.
yeah. All right, very well, Coach. This was awesome. It's great to talk to you. I really do. There's something about you guys, you and Joe. Like I just, you guys are just great and always been supportive. So I do appreciate you taking the time today. Wish you all the best. I hope to get out there at some point here in the next few months. So I'll definitely stop by and hang out on the blue turf. And
Yeah,
um,
let us know. We'll
yeah,
be here.
yeah. But and tell Daniela when she's in the Garden State to let me know. I'd love to stop by and say hello and whatever tournaments you're at. I might be reffing, so
Yeah,
because I'm an extraordinary referee. In case you didn't know that, but yeah, I turned to the dark side. So
yeah.
um,
I'm not gonna comment on referees.
yeah.
I'm gonna
What?
refrain.
I don't have my cards on me. What?
I got enough of
But
them myself. I got enough.
yeah, 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 yeah. I already have a locker full of those cards. Um, no, but thank you, and I wish you all the best, and wish you. I'll be following you definitely again this fall, and really doing a better job of system games. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate you doing this, and it's awesome what you do for all of us in the D3 world. So, thank you. I think I speak for everybody when I say we appreciate it. So.
Thank you. All right, Coach.